Hello and welcome to a review of the Frogdog expansion on the Kingdom Death Simulator. My name is Fen. We're going to be going through the newest release. This one's out for Master Key owners. It's also out in physical. Everything I'll talk about here will also apply to the physical copy except when it's simulator specific. Another quick note before we go any further. I recorded this the day before I'm speaking now, and the recording got corrupted somehow. I managed to save the footage, but there was no audio track on it, so I am now re-narrating over the top, and that means sometimes this thing's going to be doing... maybe I'll get a little caught off guard, because I can't remember everything I did, so, yeah, whatever. A little extra set of disclaimers. The Frogdog is a Node 1 monster. Specifically, it's the Node 1 monster for the inverted mountain cycle. That is something which is being added to as we go along. This is the only one that's turned up now. It's got some elements to it that appear to synergize with other future expansions. So in some cases there may be gaps and things like that where we don't know how it's going to fully round out. There's a couple of elements in particular that definitely look like they need support from other expansions and maybe the Inverted Mountain campaign itself. Also, what is it exactly? What's a Node 1 monster, in case you're not familiar with that? Node 1 is the name given to Lantern Year 1 monsters in the Gambler's Chest. It's a formalization of the systems which we sort of on and off been using in the past, and the concept is you'll have one Node 1 monster, one Node 2 monster, one Node 3 monster, and one Node 4 monster, and then similar with Nemesis monsters, etc, etc. It's a very good system, although personally I prefer a higher number of monsters. I'll typically play 3 Node 1 and Node 2 monsters in total, mixing it up a little bit. You may choose to play otherwise. It's a sandbox game, do it how you like. But key thing is, as a Node 1 monster, this is intended to be on the level of the White Lion, the Gorm, and the Crimson Crocodile. White Lion is probably the best introductory monster you could have ever asked for, and my only quibbles with the entire thing is the armour, which is a little undercooked. The Gorm, amazing second Node 1 monster to move into. Again, my only quibbles. The armour set is a little undercooked. Crimson Crocodile is, without a doubt, my favourite monster. I think it's the best monster in the entire game for my personal tastes. I love everything about it. I think there isn't a single piece of it that is at all in need of any attending or looking after or redesign or anything like that. It is the best monster Team Death have put together to date, in my opinion. For me, personally. So, the Frogdog, it's joining some really prestigious monsters. Key things here is, hopefully, as we go through this, the armor set needs to justify its cost. The monster needs to be different enough from the others. And ultimately, is this going to be fun? But before we can get any further into that, let us open up the box and look at what's inside. And here I've laid everything out. A few things you should notice immediately. There's some orange cards, there's 2 crafting locations, and there's a multiple set of piles of the AI and hit location decks. And also, there's 8 survivor miniatures. So, we'll get into all of these different bits and pieces, but this is part of what makes the Frogdog more expensive than normal, because it's got a lot more in it. We'll start with a little look at the miniature. Honestly, this is a refinement of the original resin cast. Not too much has changed. I think it may have been scaled up slightly in size. Had the the base fixed a bit. But this is a really great monster. It's disgusting and awful in all the ways you want it to be. This is a fantastic antagonist to go against. If you hate it, that's the point, and that's great. It's good fun to fight against, and it's probably the piece that is most reminiscent of berserk. Also, as disgusting as it is, these dog poles are freaking adorable. Like, they're really cute, which again ties into the whole Frogdog life cycle and everything, so fantastic. No notes, couldn't ask for a better monster. I hate it, well done. Brilliant. Next up, we've got the survivor models. So there are 2 armor sets in this box. We've got Frogdog armor and we've got Bullfrogdog armor. These are the 4 Frogdog survivors. There's the Bullfrogdog survivors. Honestly, these miniatures are, again, absolutely fantastic. In physical, you've got some choice about how you set up the weapons, so you don't have to have a double vertebrae net survivor, given that that weapon isn't paired. I mean, it looks cool, but this isn't a paired dagger, so not sure what that's about. Also, the grapple claw over there, the very long one, I did not dare use that particular version of the grapple claw in physical, because I've already broken plastics on other weapon ends like staffs and things, so that is just asking to get broken. But here on the simulator, no problem at all. The Bullfrogdog armor, these miniatures are absolutely stunning. In honest truth, we don't need 4 of them. You're unlikely to ever craft more than 1 set of armor, so we could have gotten away with just 2 sculpts, but they look stunning. They're absolutely stunning. And who knows, maybe in the future, the inverted mountain will require, it will give us more copper, so we can make more than just maybe 1 armor set, if we're lucky. We'll talk more about copper a bit later on. Still, they got this wonderful sort of samurai look mixed with a lot of frog elements. I don't think these could have turned out any better ever. They're just some of the best miniatures at all. All of these miniatures are absolute quality and class. Okay. Now, over here, we got our various decks. You'll see that there's these 2 deck piles. So those ones which I'm hovering over right now, that is the Bullfrogdog deck. It's not full deck, sorry, it's a few extra cards that get added. The little symbol indicates it's an O on the AI and that, and then the rest of these are normal. So you have a normal pool to draw from, and then you have a specific pool. You also have this unique terrain card that is linked to something I don't think you'll be able to use it on the simulator yet. I think it's to do with the scout. We have normal terrain cards, including the Copperfish Den, which I wish it would turn up more often, because we really desperately need copper. It just gets shoveled into the deck when you're playing any campaign. Mammoth Leaf, on the other hand, is like a fixed part of it. So between these 2, Copperfish Den is the one I really desperately want to see, but the Mammoth Leaf is the one you'll get most of the time. We've got the usual resources, including a extra vermin resource, which plays into some events. We've got indomitable resources and some indomitable patterns. Sadly, and this is unfortunate, there's only 2 indomitable resources in this, although I do absolutely love the steel carbuncle. That's one of the emotes I use on the Discord, because it's so good. It's just a great reaction emote. Main issue, I would say, is I wish that there was more, and there was maybe an indomitable pattern that wasn't a weapon. There is an extra indomitable pattern in the in the Survivors of Death box. It's a shame. Now we're looking at this is the fart deck. You just got to kind of live with this. The fart deck and the stink tokens are a key part of this entire experience. I think this name kind of come about because of the accident with the Sunstalker. It has a bubble mechanic, and also it deploys it has a bubble mechanic that when these bubbles pop, they cause a lot of problems to the survivors. It also had a famous typo in the book calling fighting arts farting arts, and I do think, as a speculation, that is where this came from. But this mechanic is like key to how the monster plays. We'll talk a little bit more about it on the Showdown. We've also got these omen counters. That's a part of future proofing. Omen counters are gained when you see an omen in the text. There's a few text elements of the Frogdog as a whole that have it, but not that many. So it's it's been indicated there will be more omens in the future. Until then, you might run into this and trigger the story event, but it's not guaranteed, which is cool. I like future-proofing like that. Rulebook, gorgeous. High quality. The physical version is stunning. It's much better than the first generation of rulebooks by a huge amount. Nicely illustrated, well put together. And after I fumble trying to get the pages to turn, let me give it a moment. I'm going to leave this in because it did abuse me at the time. I was just pressing the wrong button repeatedly. Yeah, it's got excellent coverage of all of the rules. I like the whole page that covers the differences between the Bullfrogdog and the Frogdog in how it behaves. That's really good. We've got a whole section covering Ark Survivors and Scouts. There is an Ark Survivor element to this, but the cards are missing. Oddly, the Scout cards are in already on the simulator. Those are in the physical version though, and honestly, it's really good. That part, the Ark Survivor thing is really good. This is the extra card that's added. Outskirts is not a location on the simulator yet, but if you have the Gambler's Chest in physical, you'll be able to make use of this card and the associated Scout card, which also I don't think is on the simulator at the moment. I like this future-proofing. I like how the Ark Survivor knowledge from the Frogdog plays. It's really thematic, it's strong, it's fun. I'm always keen to pick it. We also have an alternative early showdown, prologue showdown. So the Crimson Crocodile has one of these as well, where instead of fighting a white lion, this monster pops up and kills the white lion, and then the survivors have to battle it. I don't think this one personally is as good. You do get this white lion resource. I don't think it's as good as the Crimson Crocodile one. Because the Crimson Crocodile one gives you, as part of the rewards, the Crimson Crockery, which fundamentally changes how you play the game early on and actually helps make Rawhide less dominant. It's a big difference. I wish they'd kept on that trajectory. So on the whole, I would usually have the Crimson Crocodile as my prologue monster, but you know, this is intended to be the prologue monster for the Inverted Mountain, so yeah, you know, it is what it is. It is still nice. You get this extra white line resource. That's just a basic resource. It's good to have, and it's a solid prologue. I think the Crimson Crocodile one's harder, definitely, but it's well done. One of the other pretty interesting things about the Frogdog is, as I say, it comes with this variant monster, which is like a cross between the White Giga Lion and the Killennian Butcher, in that it's essentially a reimagining of the Frogdog. It's unlocked through the rewards over here. With you Song of the Brave, you defeat level 3 Frogdog, then you'll unlock the Bullfrogdog and get access to it as an additional quarry to hunt, which is really cool. It's fun to have those kind of things. The key difference between the Frogdog and the Bullfrogdog is that the Bullfrogdog has these big heavy tusks, and no longer it bounces around, instead it charges. As I said before, the rules do a nice job of explaining how this variation happens and how it occurs. This is also how you get to unlock the Tuskworks. And the Tuskworks is a late to end game crafting location with some very strong gear, but it is a real drag to unlock it. We'll get to talking about Noodling of Death soon enough, but suffice to say, I'm not a fan of how that event is designed at all. I'm really not. Okay, so now we can go on and take a little look at the other bits and pieces, the elements of the game. We've got these crafting locations, we've got these orange seed patterns. They're usable in this expansion. You'll unlock them whenever you gain insight, but there's only one in this box. Really, it's something waiting for the Gambler's Chest to land on the simulator. But I really like seed patterns. They are one of the best new elements of the game design as a whole. Really fun and enjoyable, providing goals and unique pieces of gear that you can experiment with and perhaps discover new ways of playing the game, which is really cool. We've also got fighting arts, disorders, secret fighting arts, all of that great stuff. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but I do really like what there is. I also really like the knowledge. The innovation here, this is the thing that ties into the omens. It's a big part of the Frogdog, at least it's due to be. And it's where this golden frog resource that sometimes turns up in the vermin deck comes into play. It's an interesting thing that I'm not going to spoil too much, and instead we're going to get on to talking about we got these settlement events. That's the introductory settlement event here of Starting Barks that replaces First Story. It's fun, it's nice. They're all great, they're just slightly different. We got this one that gets mixed into the deck as well, Gathering Emissions. It's nice to have more settlement events. It adds more variety and emergent storytelling to your gameplay, which I think is always a good thing, so no complaints at all. And now, let's get into the Froskrafter. This is the Frogdog crafting location. You unlock this after you beat your first level 1 Frogdog, or whatever level you beat first of all. It's a standard Node 1 crafting location in that it has an armor set, it has a selection of weapons, some items of various types, and the theming of this one, well, it's got a dagger, it's got a club, it's got an axe, and it's got a whip/scythe and a shield. Plus it has a thrown weapon. Thrown weapons, once they finally get some support from weapon proficiency, might be very interesting to use. It is actually decent. We'll take a little look at it, but it's kind of a utility item, really, not strictly speaking a weapon, although it has a weapon profile. Right, so this one in particular, the Grapple Claw, is very unusual. It's a whip/scythe weapon. If you want to make proper use of it in a campaign, you're really going to need the Dragon King expansion, which is a little bit of a shame that the Scythe Proficiency Mastery card didn't also come in the Frogdog box. You can also get, via the King, there's an Indomitable resource promotional box called Lord's Ruin, who will provide an Indomitable Scythe. So if you want to play with Scythes, you would run this Frogdog plus Dragon King plus King with Lord's Ruin extra content. A lot to pick up, but it is fun. Scythes are very, very good. Otherwise, you can just use this as a whip or even as a fist and tooth master weapon. So when you're training fist and tooth mastery, it's nice to have a weapon that you can use after you've scored your fist and tooth wound. And the Grapple Claw does a good job of that. But next, let's just take a little look at the armor set. This is actually a very good armor set. It took a little while to get to grips with, but it is fantastic to build as one of your first or second armor sets, to be a frontline tank, and then eventually it will graduate its way across to becoming a damage dealer's armor set. Specifically, I think it's very good when used with ranged weapons, so archery. It's got a number of fantastic abilities on here. The suit itself, that's the waist slot item. You get to stand up after resolving knocked back if you get knocked down. That's very useful. It's like Shell from Portal's little, what are they called, like spring boots or whatever. You have this actually really good ability, Inflate, on the body piece, which adds 1 armor point to a hit location that's wearing armor. That, against level 1 monsters, is an entire hit a lot of the time. But also it has synergy with the rest of the armor set, because the armor set is about spending armor points to move. The Frogdog boots being a big part of that. They have this ability called Burst, which I'm just mentioning this as outfit. That's what I'm highlighting there. These are both, this and the mascot outfit. They have membrane. They can be used with tusk armor. Anyway, to bring it back to Frogdog boots, they have burst. During a survival opportunity, you spend all leg armor points, minimum of 1. You suffer knockback 5 in any direction. So this is really, really good. Anytime a monster targets you, if you can outdistance them, you can make them waste their entire turn because they're forced to move after you and they can't reach you and resolve their attack. That is very, very powerful. This can be used without dash. This can be used in combination with dash. And you can also reset it by using inflate. Finally, really doesn't matter so much if you're losing armor points on your legs, because legs are the least likely to get damaged. Sorry, lethal damage. So when you take a hit, you are less likely to die from that hit if it's in the legs than any other location. So you can get away with having less armor on your legs, especially when you got the vest that lets you replenish the armor points, which is really cool. It's fantastic. It's also a way of propelling yourself around if you're using a bow. We also have, speaking of propel, the set bonus. Propel, spend a knight and a bolt. You spend all your armor points at a hit location. You suffer knockback in any direction equal to spent armor points. Then you activate a weapon to attack, and your attack gains the amount of knockback armor points spent as strength. I'd be spending from the sleeves and the suit, so the waist and arms. That's the locations I use. I want to keep the boots for jetting around. The key thing about this is it's, and like many of the other monster movement abilities, it says just weapon. Last of all here, Frogdog mask ability. This allows you to ignore gas half the time on a 6+. Whenever you suffer the effects of it, ignore it. Specifically there to deal with the fart deck from the Frogdog, but also any other kinds of gas. It arguably should be able to work there. One would suggest the smog singers. Smog is a gas. It depends. We haven't really gotten official rulings on all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, Kingdom Death often is a case of work it out yourself. And in my opinion, if something logically is a gas, then this mask should work. So when it comes to my sort of final thoughts on this, given that this is an armor set that provides 15 armor points plus extra via inflate, and that matters for helping with breakpoints, and it has this ability that works with ranged weapons instead of just melee weapons, and all of those green affinities, and the incredible boots, I really can't say anything other than I think this is probably the third best early game armor set we have for Node 1 situations. It is behind Crimson Crocodile and Rawhide for sure, but otherwise this is how I want an armor set for the early game to be designed. Interesting, flexible, and with enough protection or ability to generate protection to hang out for at least as long as Rawhide. Let's look at the rest of the gear now. So first of all, here we have the Vigor Capsule. This gives you plus 1 movement if you're insane. One of the best uses for this is in combination with White Lion armor, because it will click underneath the boots and give you a ton of extra movement, which helps that set a lot. It's also great with Crimson Crocodile armor. A number of these things require you to be insane, and Crimson Crocodile armor can cover that really well. We got the Vertebrae in it, not paired, but a very strong and interesting dagger with an incredibly fun name that was, I think, created by Anna Poots. It's got a blue affinity that combines with Lucky Charm and an ability that hurts monsters, or more chance of scoring persistent wounds, which is it's a nice use. Then we have the Frog Whistle. Usual noisy warning, but this has a solid ability that's very useful. The +1 strength is great, the +1 survival is decent. I very much like how this plays outside of the Harvester issue. Spiked Buckler, oof, possibly the best new weapon in this lot. This ability, when it blocks a hit, roll 1d10 on a 9 plus the monster suffers a wound, limit once per round. Automatic wound, also, weapon proficiency doesn't care if you're attacking with a weapon or not, as long as the wound is inflicted by the weapon. That means this ability works on the defense. So 20% of the time, you get your shield proficiency tick. That is really good. A really, really good weapon, and a fantastic shield. Super happy with it. I think it's probably better than the Knuckle Shield. Acid Bombs, love to see thrown weapons. Want my thrown weapon proficiency, but I've always been asking for that. Great stat line, great ability, basically perfectly designed. I really like this item, this gear card. I think of it as an item because it's utility. Crest Axe, solid. Definitely not my favourite. This losing 4 strength, if you're not insane, could be a problem, but there are ways of supporting yourself staying insane, like Mindlock tokens or Screaming Horns, etc. So, yeah. Same with Turbotonic. Actually, nice speed bonus, minus accuracy and speed bonus. I like this trade-off. And then we have the Grapple Claw. This is a weapon that gets most use if you also own the Dragon King, Lord's Ruin, and the King. It's got this weird ability on it where you activate with your bolt to gain reach 5. That means that's useless unless you have Surge. It feels like it should have been the Knight for a movement. Everything mechanically feels that way, but it isn't like that, which is strange. Otherwise, it's got great affinities. It's got solid weapon types. Scythe and Whip are both really good weapon types. And a stat profile as good as the Lion Beast Guitar. In fact, it's just, this is the monster's Lion Beast Guitar. Better than it in many ways. Lure Lantern. Well, this is how you get copper. We'll talk more about the Lure Lantern Noodling of Death event a bit later on. By itself, this is actually perfectly fine. But Noodling of Death is not fine. It's not okay. We're not happy noodling. We'll talk about it a bit later. Frogdoggles. Every Node 1 monster seems to have a AI or hit location scouting item. So we've got Wisdom Potion, Cat Eye Circlet, and Blood Crimson Lantern. I think the name of the Crimson Crocodile one is. Frogdoggles is the latest to add to these. While you're insane, at the start of your act, you reveal top cards of the AI and hit location deck. This is my favourite form of scouting apart from the Blood Compass Lantern, because it's passive. And it's not giving you control over the monster. It's just telling you what the monster's going to be doing, which I prefer over constantly controlling the monster, which is, you know, more powerful. Also, when you're stinky, you get +1 accuracy if you have all these connected up. This more or less makes the argument for the Frogdog to be an essential part of most people's campaigns because it is a solid item. It's definitely one that newer players will find immensely helpful. I don't know what else to say. Like, information is power. When the monster can't change how it's behaving, it's really strong. Last of all, Long Club, which is incredibly basic and powerful. It's a accurate 3 strength, 2-handed weapon with reach 2 and some reasonable affinities. It's long. It's a club. What else is there to say, really? It's good. Before we get into the Tuskworks, it's time to talk about the resource that's involved, which is copper. This isn't produced by the Bullfrogdog. Instead, we gain it from some other sources, and we combine it with the Bullfrogdog's specific strange resources to be able to craft the various pieces of Tuskworks gear. One of the places we can get it is this Copperfish Den, which is a pretty solid place to go if you have a Lure Lantern. I always hope that this will turn up. This is my preferred way of getting copper, but it's very difficult to get unless you've got Facism survivors. Yeah, Facism. I hate saying and writing that word. It is so close to every time to get into something I don't want to talk about. Anyway, I like this location a lot. It's worth always having a Lure Lantern to be able to take advantage of this location if it turns up. Not super keen on reaching into it without a Lure Lantern, but remember that Screaming Antelope armor can help here. So yeah, it's solid if you see this. Unfortunately, there's no way of getting it all of the time. Right, so next big thing to talk about is this bioluminescent tonsils, written as incandescent tonsils here. They're made from a level, the Lure Lanterns are made from bioluminescent tonsils. I'm going to show that it is bioluminescent tonsil. I guess incandescent tonsil here is just a typo from an earlier name. Yep, see, it's yeah, there you are, bioluminescent tonsils. and we'll just have a real quick look at them. There they are, along with burnished encephalomata, which we hate. So typically you're going to get a maximum of 5 of these bioluminescent tonsils, which you'll spend on lure lanterns. Anything more than that, you know, you're having to put extra effort in fighting the Frogdog, which I don't like. Noodling of Death, once you have it, works much like any of the others. You put it on the hunt track, and then when you reach the card, you resolve it. But this table is my least favourite piece of design that's come out in the past couple of years, apart from the scout system. I don't understand how this table came into existence. To explain what I mean and why I despise it so much, let's just walk through it. Top layer, this is a nested table like mineral gathering. Top layer, you roll a d10 for each survivor with a lure lantern. Remember, they're quite hard to make. 30% of the time you lose the lantern and you lose an arm. So that could happen on your very first attempt to use it. That's absolutely atrocious. 4 to 5 random vermin resource. 6 to 7 is where you get 2 bleeding tokens and the burnished encephalomata. That's the best result you could hope for on this top section. Seriously. 6 to 7. On an 8+, you automatically have to roll on the clear waters below. There's no further benefit. Clear Waters has a 30% chance of taking 3 survival and insanity from you. And remember, we're playing with an expansion that likes insanity on survivors. That hurts. On 4, 5, or 6, you lose an evasion token and you get a compensation of a soaking wet random basic resource. Excuse my chair. And on 7+, 40% of the time, you can either have the burnished encephalomata or you can go down to the eventide. Take the encephalomata. Don't go to the eventide. We'll walk into it a little bit to explain why that is the case. But honestly, if I roll this 7+ on Clear Waters, I am generally relieved. Eventide, 40% of the time you get hit with living film parasites. And that absolutely sucks. It deletes your light injury level boxes effectively. You get to use them once and then they're gone forever. That is a nightmare. On a 5, 6, or 7, you get the golden frog vermin resource in exchange for a collapsed lung severe injury. This is okay, but we're not here for golden frogs. On an 8+, you either go up and gain 1d10 insanity and +1 understanding, or you go down and gain the buckle blood breathing secret fighting art, which is a good secret fighting art, and then you have to roll on the awfulness that is the bottom. So 30% of the time you're dead and you're replaced with a random basic resource. 40% of the time, 4, 5, or 6, we actually get 3 burnished encephalomata, or possibly 3 burnished encephalomata and some basics. That's only 2 better than what we could get from a 6 or a 7 up near the top. Really awful, considering that this is only slightly more likely than dying, which I do not understand at all. And then on an 8+, you gain the Dark Water Pearl. I'm not going to talk about that in much detail here, except to say I don't consider that to be a benefit. It's not worth 6 Hunt XP in my opinion. It's a fine rare piece of gear, but you know, and being retired isn't as bad as it used to be. We have ways of getting around it if we're playing with Dark Survivors. But ultimately, this table is bizarre. The percentages are really weird. Each lure lantern will generate you about a return of 0.7 to 0.8 copper per lure lantern. So each one lure lantern might not even translate directly into 1 piece of copper, which is a nightmare. And essentially, the odds of getting a piece of copper, if you grab whatever you get and take it as soon as you can, is about 24%. You know, 8+ and then a 7+, compared to 30% chance of losing the lantern and losing an arm. I don't understand how this table came to being, given how good the other tables that do the same thing, mineral gathering, herb gathering, and sky fishing, how good they are in comparison. There's no way of mitigating this. It's not like we can have a second piece of gear that will give you a reroll or prevent some issues on here. You end up spending Survive the Fittest rerolls, and there's so many bad things. So honestly, just if you get dragged to the clear waters and you get the Burnishing Sapphire Matter, take it, get out of here, and worry about losing an arm next time. Also, never use a Lure Lantern on a two-handed weapon user, because that would suck to get into the Showdown and be missing an arm. So you won't be able to activate your weapon. Yeah, I really don't know what else to say. I've tried and tried and tried. I can only assume that there's going to be a fair amount of copper in the other Inverted Mountain monsters, or perhaps as a standard part of some copper mining thing in the Inverted Mountain, because otherwise this ain't it, which is a shame, because look at that. I really like this piece of work. I love that, these strange creatures, that bizarre tooth-fingered hand thing and everything. This is all gorgeous and intriguing and amazing world building. It's just the same shame that mechanically it makes me feel sad. But if you are fortunate and you get the copper, these are great. And there's even two pieces of gear we can craft here that don't need copper, which I just highlighted. So that's always nice as well. Yeah. I'm going to make a little cut here and stop talking about Noodling of Death, except to say that I really think it needs massive revisions and I don't enjoy playing with it. I'm not the only person who's felt that way. I've seen other people be way ruder about the experience of gathering copper. So instead, let's look at the rest of the gear. We're going to start with a little look at the armor set, which needs, if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copper total. So that's, you may notice, higher than 5 lure lanterns, so we do need a little bit of luck to get there, but we can use an outfit to replace the helm to reduce the copper cost to 5. Still less than what we get on average from 5 lure lanterns, but it is what it is. We also need Gula Sacks. That's a Bullfrog dog drop only, so you're going to have to fight at least 2 Bullfrog dogs if you want to make a Bullfrog armor set. Additionally, down here we got our weapons. We do need our weapons because, as it turns out, Bullfrog stuff is really very parasitic. It's designed to work almost exclusively with itself and some other heavy weapons, but the weapons are kind of not great elsewhere. To highlight what I mean, here's the armor set. There's no argument this is a strong armor set if you build it, but it's also very baked in design. This is pretty much the configuration I like to use because of how all of these things work. And you can see we have a lot of stuff that all ties into using heavy weapons, so we want at least 1 or 2 heavy weapons in our gear grid, and typically that means it's going to be the Frogdog stuff. It's as I say, it's fun to play, definitely fun to play, but the weapon designs are clearly saying we want you to use the weapons with all of these bonuses. Like this one, Surpass, yeah? Surpass 10. Surpass is an ability that if you score past the monster's toughness by 10 points, you score an extra wound. Then we've got like Onslaught here. If all your attack rolls hit, double your wound attempt totals for the attack. So clearly these weapons are trying to combine with Surpass. Scimitar is one of the weapons I actually have used with Dragon Armor, and it felt good, because Dragon Armor can overcome the bad accuracy with its leap, and it still works the gain sharp and everything, so that was an interesting synergy for one weapon. I wouldn't use the Scimitar with Bullfrogdog armor though. I'd use the mace or preferably the halberd, because the halberd has reach and Bullfrogdog armor has another monster movement ability. Spend Knight, spend Bolt, full move in the straight line, activate a weapon to attack. You get +1 accuracy for each space you've moved, and you'll notice all of these Bullfrogdog weapons have very poor accuracy, intended to be boosted up by the arm guard and the ability. And then you want all of them trigger stuff like this. The halberd ability is amazing. I really enjoy using it. It's great, but the full charge shield as well, you'll see if you spend Bolt and Knight simultaneously, you get Deflect 1 for free. That shield actually works nicely with other monster movement sets. Phoenix and Dragon King are like real prime targets. I'm just, obviously here at this point I was talking about how I like the scimitar with the Dragon King, which I say, I think it works really nicely, but otherwise I wouldn't put it with Bullfrogdog armor because it's 2 copper, it's too expensive. I'd run the mace, which also is okay with lantern armor, but not great. It's an 8+ accuracy with lantern armor. You can try and do more stuff to make it work better, but ultimately I think the Bullfrog mace and halberd should be used with the armor set. So, outfits. If you're short on copper, you can use the Frogdog mask, which I put over the shield for some reason. I was just demonstrating where the connection goes, but it should go over the top of the helmet. The issue here is that you're not getting a lot of extra armor points on your head at this point. You're getting 2 plus 1 for the set bonus, plus the bonuses from the Bullfrog cuirass. And as I've discussed in the past, we desperately want to have as much armor points on the head and body as possible. So if you're desperate, you can do it. But I wouldn't advise it. The Frogdog boots would be an amazing way of getting around this because they perfectly fit into the same slot as the Bullfrog boots, with one problem. You don't need so much armor points on your legs, but you can't really use the burst ability because you've got no way of replenishing. So on top of that, there's actually 2 problems. The boots on the Bullfrog armor don't cost any copper, so we don't mind crafting them every time because we can build them in advance. To just look at the other bits of gear, we got the heavy frog lantern. This is designed to work with any weapon to make it combo with the Bullfrog armor. Don't mind that, but it costs copper, so this is for those people who are lucky and are very copper rich. It also can be used with the halberd and similar to drop the speed down, so you trigger all of your attack rolls hit. Then we got the Bullfrog bauble. Doesn't need any copper to craft. Amazing affinities. Nice ability if you're insane. You can spend all your arm points for 1 hit location, so that can knock down survivor, and they stand and gain the same number of arm points to a hit location. This has no range on it at all. Any distance it works at. So you can be sat in the corner of the map, far away from trouble, providing support via various other abilities, collecting from terrain, etc. And when a key survivor gets knocked over, you can just surge or spend your activation for the turn, pop them back onto their feet, and heal up a place that needed some work. Really, really, really useful. And even when you can't use it, having all of these affinities matters. So I think that's absolutely fine. Ultimately, copper hangs very heavily over the top of the Tuskworks, and this is adding to the cost of everything. These things have to be made. The sculpts were made, the cards were printed, the design was put out there, and as a consequence, this expansion in physical costs $125 instead of around $85, which is the Gorm. So that does sort of matter. As I say, in the future, maybe we get other ways of getting copper, and that'll help, but it does not excuse the sins of Noodling of Death at all, which is a shame. I really am kind of sad that this event is the way it is, to be honest. It's a disappointment for sure. Now let's take a look at the Showdown setup and just chat a little bit about how the Frogdog fights. The very first thing to note is there's no extra random terrain, which I briefly mentioned about, but that is a little bit of a difficulty. We'll get back to it. So, normal Frogdog has Leap. It bounces around using its AI cards and stuff to go to different random mammoth leaps. This is interesting push and pull because the survivors also actually want to make use of the mammoth leaps. I think it's a really good piece of Showdown design. It is fun. It allows you to push the envelope and be more aggressive against higher levels. But also you have the risk of the Frogdog landing on you, damaging you, and similar. We just go, nope, it's down there. Yep. We'll just take a quick look at the mammoth leaf. This is really cool. Spend night and bolt, bounce on the surface of the leaf, spring to action if you're on the mammoth leaf, place your survivor on an unoccupied space up to 7 spaces away, and activate a weapon in your gear grid with +3 strength. Really cool. I hope it's +3 strength, I can't quite remember. Then we got Foul Stench. This puts stink tokens for each survivor's stinky gear in their gear grid on arrival. Whoever the survivor has who has the most stink tokens is the stinkiest. Frogdog does a fair amount of targeting against that. Then we got the Double Sphincter. This is a location that gradually builds up the fart cards to be triggered by gaseous, part of gaseous bloat. As you can see, gaseous bloat puts the top card of the fart deck face down on the sphincter, and then will trigger it at the start of the monster's turn before drawing AI. The way you deal with this is by attacking the monster in the heinous origin, which is one of the spaces in the blind spot, and you will get rid of the top card on the double sphincter. So we're rewarded for stabbing the monster in the butt. Here's an example of one of the cards, Oily Emission. Look at that. Target survivor fewer spaces in the heinous origin. They suffer monster level damage to the body and waste hit locations and gain a stink token. That's just a basic. So this deck is pretty powerful. You need to handle it. But it kind of encourages you to play in the way we play against most monsters, which is stabbing them in the backside. I almost wish that it was a belch deck, and the heinous origin was the middle space in front of the monster. That would have mixed things up a little bit in the way that like Spidiculus mixes things up by its blind spot being directly underneath it. Still, it's not bad. It's not upsetting. It's just a little extra thing that could have happened. That maybe would mix up our usual play patterns. Real shame is there's never any additional terrain generated, but on the whole, I like a lot of what this is doing. I do wish, as other people have expressed the same wish, that the Copperfish Den was a part of the Showdown board. That would have definitely helped the copper issues, and also not having extra random terrain is a shame. It provides opportunities and influences and affects the way you're going to play quite a lot. It's surprising what just having something can change everything. The dynamic of the Showdown as it stands, though, with how the monstrous lilipad leaves work, the fart deck, the way the monster behaves, all of this comes together really well, and it is a great Showdown. It is just... could have done with a little bit more variety in the terrain in the way that the others are. I do like how the mammoth lily pads provide an alternative to the tall grass. So instead of defensive, we're getting offensive buffs. And that's pretty much everything. So to wrap it up, final thoughts. I think that the Frogdog expansion is pretty good. It's not perfect. I don't think this is the best Node 1 monster. That is absolutely, definitely the Crimson Crocodile, but it is a part of the Gambler's Chest, which is quite an expensive thing to invest in. You can't just buy the Crimson Crocodile separately, nor would I recommend you do, because the Gambler's Chest is great, and I can't wait for it to be on the simulator. But, well... where does... the biggest problem I have here is... because there's just a couple of areas where this lacks, it feels weird to unreservedly recommend it, but I have had a lot of fun playing with it. So I think my recommendation is, if you have the simulator, this is probably going to be $12.50 plus tax. That's really good. Definitely get it on the simulator. In physical at $125. Really, if you're thrilled with what you've seen here, if you're excited by it all, you will have a grand time. If you're on a budget, the Gorm is also just a great alternative that is a bit cheaper. And while the armor set isn't as good as the Frogdog armor set, it's still interesting and does work with archers in a different manner. So I think this is probably... overall, the second best Node 1 Quarry monster. I like how well it plays alongside the Crimson Crocodile. I like how it plays with the Screaming Antelope as well. I do enjoy having it. I'm very glad to have received it. We need to see the full picture. For people on a budget, I would suggest hanging fire on this, and maybe exploring other elements, or perhaps even just saving that money towards the Gambler's Chest, so you get a guaranteed knockout, slam dunk, amazing monster, and a really fun system in arcs. Otherwise, I think I'm going to give this a score. It's going to be like between a 7 and an 8 out of 10, so I'll round it up to like an 8 out of 10, which is a good score from me because I can get quite critical at times. But yeah, behind the Crimson Crocodile for sure. I think for a first-time player, the White Line is definitely better. So this might, yeah, if this was the same price as the Gorm, it would always be a pick ahead of the Gorm. But as it stands, if that $40 or so plus tax and shipping makes a difference, then you should you can go with this if you can afford it. And that's it. Right. Well, thank you for listening. Sorry if this has been a bit more like hectic than usual, but as I said, I've had to like narrate over the back of me doing things without remembering everything because I only ad-lib partly off a script. So thank you for listening. Thank you to all my patrons who support these videos and all the other writing I get to do. I'm very appreciative of it. And until next time, thanks for watching.